Hey, Will.
Hey Joel, how's it going?
Everything is good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Good, good. I'm ready to talk about the news.
Me too. So, for everybody tuning in, my name is Jill Berkowitz. I'm the community manager here at Clerk Chat. And
I'm Will. I'm our AI implementation specialist.
so this week we have an overarching theme: responsible and ethical AI development and employment. It's a really important topic for everybody to talk about, but also for everybody to understand. There are three main subtopics that we're going to talk about today. What is a deep fake and why is it problematic? PwC's Global Artificial Intelligence Study, and PwC is also currently a strategic AI partner for TED. Let's talk about this first article that I read this week. A telecom company agreed to a $1 million fine over a Biden deepfake. So, a telecom company called Lingo Telecom, which is a voice service provider, is paying a $1 million fine for participating in distributing a deepfake robocall back in January. So this is not really new news. The call told people not to vote in the presidential primary and instead to save their votes for this November, a few months from now. This situation was later found to be AI generated and done through spoofed phone numbers. For those tuning in, if you're wondering exactly what a deep fake is, we kind of hear it in the news and all over in the AI world now. So let's unpack it for a moment. When we're referring to a deep fake related to AI, it's when artificial intelligence is used to create media content like images, sounds, videos with the intention to trick others or impersonate somebody and make you think that it's real. When it's done well, and sometimes it is, it could be really, really convincing. The article that I read from NBC stated the consequences are what federal authorities call a first of its kind enforcement action against malicious deepfakes or AI driven impersonations of others. So they were really nailed in this situation and they have consequences. I don't know how many people are really even aware that this situation happened. I only knew about it because I stumbled upon it in the news when I was reading. But I do believe that this consequence might impact the way other companies and individuals choose to use AI technology. I also think that ensuring AI is used ethically and responsibly, because in this case it obviously wasn't, is a really, really long game, not something that's just going to happen where we snap our fingers and happen overnight.
Yeah, I agree. I think the idea of it being a long game is super important because at every stage, it's not just going to be like we have suddenly solved the problem. It's going to be a constant battle to kind of go back to the drawing board and get a new set of regulations in because of technology that solves this problem. And I've seen video on Instagram, on X, of like political videos. I don't know if you've seen any.
But here's the thing, you were able to identify that it was fake. Not everybody will.
No, exactly. And that the problem lies people see what they want to believe.
This is also where the FCC can come in to help, the Federal Communications Commission. In fact, I had read that the FCC chairwoman, Jessica Rosenworcel's statement says, we propose that political advertisements that run on television and radio should disclose whether AI is being used. If a candidate or issue campaign used AI to create an ad, the public has a right to know. Related, when I was reading your newsletter, you had mentioned that California passed SB 1047 AI bill. Can you tell us a bit more about this and what the bill is designed to do? Because it does seem kind of related to the issue that we were just discussing.
Basically, the California senator passed this bill to mitigate potential AI disasters. So kind of the big, scary things that we hear about in the news. And the way I heard about it was a lot of venture capitalists, a lot of accelerators, Y Combinator came out against this, even Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, saying this is actually a hindrance to development, to innovation, and really we should scrap it. And then I found this particularly interesting in light of the election where we've got one side, Republican, who are very regulatory in terms of AI and new technologies, and then the Democrats who are kind of taking a more regulatory approach.
So actually, I think what's really neat is that in order to decide regulations and laws and bills that probably need to be put in place, there need to be more surveys and studies that have to happen to better inform the government, right? So PwC, which many of us know as PricewaterhouseCoopers, is known for its trust and consulting services. They shared results from its global artificial intelligence study. And I really, really loved seeing how a well known business is leading the conversation about AI and helping to educate the world about the impact of artificial intelligence. The study indicated there are 4 ways to make the most out of AI. It was called AI in Your Business, Prioritize Your Response, Talent, Culture, and Technology, and Governance and Control. Trust and transparency are critical. So I'd really like to chat about this 4th step because I do believe it is pretty critical, but within reason. So PwC happened to use an autonomous vehicle as an example, which was relatable to me because I understand what that is. We're literally taking a leap of faith and you have to trust AI with your life, right? But this concept of trust and transparency extends far beyond self-driving cars. I guess a good question here, though, is how can a company using AI create and maintain customer trust? Because I think that is going to take a very long time to happen. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, I think this is a super important point for any company working on an AI product. And I've actually been thinking about this recently with ClerkChat's AI product, like transparency, openness. And I think one thing I'd also add to that is diversity with the teams that are creating the product. My take on it is that ideally AI would be doing the task it's set out to do correctly 100% of the time. So like driving a car, for example, it would do that 100% of the time, getting from A to B safely every single time. And yeah, the only way we think to build that trust is by literally having those results right. The second thing with that is that there also needs to be very specific tailored guardrails for each use case, which kind of acts as a catch-all. So in the event that something doesn't go 100% correctly, which is actually likely, there needs to be a catch-all that says, in this case, we will do X, Y, and Z to make sure that the negative effects are mitigated and people are happy with that outcome. So in terms of ClerkChat, 100% of the time it should answer messages exactly how the customer wants it answered. But in the case it doesn't, there's a workflow that flags it to a human and the AI doesn't respond. So in this case, the customer's happy, right?
It's hard to guarantee 100% of the time. And I think that people who are interacting with AI have to go into it knowing that.
Yeah. Actually, that's interesting. Like humans aren't right 100% of the time. I guess people can be fine with it being right like 90% of the time, and that's better than a human. But yeah.
Actually, but you just made such a good point. You're like, but humans aren't right 100% of the time either. So let's take a customer service example, right? And let's say we're using an AI assistant to help us with customer service. There isn't a chance if somebody is interacting with a human on customer service, they may not be 100% right. They may make a mistake. They may have inaccurate information. While we don't want that to happen, I'm sure if we did some sort of survey, of a ton of companies that offer customer service, right? Most companies do. What is the percentage of customer support answers that were 100% right? There has to be some room for error, right?
Completely, yeah.
There's some room for error then with AI too.
Yeah, exactly. But there's this tendency, I think, to look at AI and be like, it has to, like, if it's not 100%, then it's not good enough, which I think is something that we'll have to break through.
You made me think.
Same.
Because I'm always over here saying like, I don't know, I'm not ready to trust AI, but humans aren't always 100% right either.
Yes, far from it. Far from it.
I'd also like to bring up another conversation related to PwC. They have collabed with TED. And so I happened to watch this great YouTube video from TED Idea Studio. It was from 2 months ago, but it's like completely relevant and it will be for a while. I grabbed this quote from the video. The real issue is the pace of change we're seeing. We're not used to it as humans. Humans have been through technology evolution that usually takes decades. That was like a light bulb moment for me, right? If we go back through history and think about all the revolutions and all the technology that's happened, nothing really seemed to happen overnight. Obviously, I didn't live through it all, so I can't talk firsthand. But even the invention of the internet, for example, and my first experience using AOL, America Online, I didn't feel like that was overnight. I mean, I was really kind of like fascinated by it, but it didn't seem as fast as AI does for some reason. So how do people navigate the change? How can we help others lean in How can we lean in without losing the human spirit? I actually think that's probably the most important question. I certainly don't have the answers for it, but it's a great conversation to have.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a huge question. And there's kind of two pillars that I think relate to this. The first one being educating. So educating people about the change, the new technology, and how to use is key. And yeah, we still have the problem that previously we've gone through a tech evolution where there's plans being 1 decade or 2 decades, and this has happened in like 2 years. But then the interesting thing with this as well is now the accessibility to learning about it. That rate has increased at the same time. So although the rate of innovation has increased, it's enabled you to learn faster about itself through that innovation, as the internet did. Education is the first pillar to ensuring people navigate the change. But then the second pillar, and I think this addresses also without losing human spirit, is ensuring AI remains a supplement to humans rather than a replacement. So it enables what we do. I think that's the key with AI. As long as it's working with us and not to replace what we do, that's the key of kind of keeping the human spirit, I think. But how we navigate that is hard. But just, I don't know what you think about that.
I thought a lot about this. I want to piggyback off of what you said about education because I actually don't think that navigating this change has to be a challenge. Maybe it's because I'm a lifelong learner. I always encourage others to have that mindset. If you're willing to learn, be curious, expand your literacy to digital literacy, talk about it, especially if you're feeling anxious or uncertain. You're not the only one, right? There's got to be somebody else in the room who also has some anxieties over artificial intelligence. I'd like to think that you and I are helping others break
And each other.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learn from you every day. I was just telling somebody this story the
Likewise.
other day, like I ask questions and you give me these amazing answers. And sometimes you say, I don't know, I have to look it up. And when I was a teacher, I did the same thing. I actually thought to myself, if I was to teach a class on artificial intelligence, which I am not yet able to do, but if I were to, I would start with a KWL chart. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the whole idea of a KWL is what do you already know about the topic? What do you want to learn about the topic? And then after the whole unit is done, what have you learned about the topic? So you can kind of compare what you started with and what you ended with.
Learning anything can be approached as a challenge or not. It's just about like chunking it, right? Breaking it down.
I'm so glad that we had this conversation today, Will. I think it's just a topic that's on a lot of people's minds. And I'd rather address it than let it just be an elephant in the room.
100%. Yeah. It's good to discuss these bigger topics and relating to weekly news.
I will tell you my one big takeaway today after our discussion. It's really my hope that AI technology is used for good, not for harm. And I do think that the education piece will also help inform others of how to do that responsibly.
Yeah, and the transparency as well. Yeah, completely agree.
Okay, well, can't wait to chat next week.
Yeah, me too. Have a nice week.